Some suggest that a single thought, left unfed and unacknowledged, soon loses its grip on the mind and dissolves into nothingness. Although such a thought might appear harmless or even trivial, it can nonetheless carry disruptive energy if it is at odds with well-being or harmony. By consciously choosing to remain aware and centered, it becomes possible to let go of thoughts that do not serve a higher purpose. In this approach, the absence of needless mental chatter paves the way for a calmer, more aligned existence. When a person stops chasing particular outcomes and releases the tight grasp on specific desires, those very outcomes can sometimes begin to find their way forward on their own. This process appears to echo the notion that attention flows where energy goes. Withdrawing attention from limiting beliefs and worries can loosen their hold and gently shift life toward a more expansive reality. Some who explore this perspective often speak of dissolving the mindset of illness, failure, or lack by refusing to entertain thoughts that reinforce such conditions. If an individual repeatedly thinks there is nothing but scarcity, then it becomes increasingly difficult to perceive any opportunity for abundance. In contrast, when a person erases or invalidates limiting notions, such as unworthiness or perpetual sickness, a space emerges for fresh possibilities. By no longer giving power to negative convictions, the mind can begin aligning with what might be called a divine or infinite potential. This allows the constraints that once felt insurmountable to reveal themselves as illusions, while a more limitless sense of self gradually takes form. Some people reflect on what life could be like without the mental scripts proclaiming sickness, unattractiveness, or lack of success. When those scripts are absent, the only thoughts that remain might be ones that affirm wholeness, beauty, and potential. Such a shift can produce remarkable transformations. By imagining a state in which a person continuously embraces the notion that all things are possible, each day can unfold with greater spontaneity and joy. In certain traditions, including some threads within the Hindu worldview, there are teachings that the essence of every living being is part of something infinite. Within these viewpoints, the more one connects to this infinite nature, the more each obstacle seems to shrink in relevance. This shift in perspective transcends mere positive thinking. It involves deeply understanding that consciousness itself may be shaped by the focus placed upon it, leading to tangible outcomes in the material world. Numerous observers have witnessed how powerfully this principle influences day-to-day life decisions. During a period of intense cleansing or detoxification, for example, many become aware that most habitual behaviors, whether dietary, physical, or social, originate in mental conditioning. One might see acquaintances clinging to practices that sabotage well-being, not because those individuals lack knowledge or resources, but because their thoughts cycle around an ingrained pattern. This highlights the idea that the mind, when filled with repetitive internal narratives, can draw people away from healthy choices and deeper connection. Yet once thoughts shift toward health, awareness, and love, new behaviors start to feel more natural. In wider social discussions, fear and self-interest too often emerge as dominant themes. Some lament that issues such as healthcare become debates framed by scarcity and anxiety rather than empathy or compassion. If more decisions were guided by reverence for the dignity and worth of all living beings, systems could develop that reflect a more inclusive and caring approach. This is not an argument about economic models alone. It touches on the fundamental idea that the collective mind can choose to feed thoughts of separation or thoughts of unity. Should unity and mutual upliftment become the guiding ideals, the structures that shape society could begin to transform, reflecting a deeper, more supportive reality. Love is often cited as the connecting thread behind all meaningful change. Conflict in relationships can be especially telling in this regard. When two people encounter friction because of diverging interests or outlooks, it is tempting to insist that the other adopt a certain viewpoint. But genuine love respects free will and honors the unique path each person walks. Rather than demanding agreement, it can be more constructive to extend acceptance, even if there is disagreement. This does not suggest avoiding necessary discussions or ignoring problematic behaviors. It implies that differences can be navigated from a place of openness and caring rather than hostility. Many have found that this approach cultivates resilience in partnerships, friendships, and family ties because it allows each person the room to grow at their own pace. Alignment emerges as a key concept in many teachings about conscious living. Aligning with a deeper essence implies recognizing that every being is part of something infinite, and that limiting thoughts only obscure this reality. A person who embraces this belief might realize that the entire tapestry of life responds to thought energy. As soon as attention shifts from fear and worry to gratitude ability, subtle yet powerful changes can begin to manifest. Countless anecdotes from various cultures describe how focusing on health rather than illness, on solutions rather than problems, on love rather than resentment, leads to measurable changes over time. These changes can be physical, emotional, or spiritual. Consider well-being as an example. There are those who feel imprisoned by chronic conditions or a painful sense of personal inadequacy. In many instances, the weight of negative thinking perpetuates the struggle. Yet some who adopt a new mental framework, consistently directing thoughts toward wholeness and the capacity for wellness, discover that the body and spirit respond. It is not about denying the presence of symptoms or challenges. Rather, it is about recognizing that the story of permanent limitation can be replaced with a narrative of open-ended possibility. Even when difficulties persist, focusing on what can be learned or how compassion can be expanded often generates a kind of lightness that was previously lacking. In observing individuals on differing paths, it is common to find that one person evolves at a different rate than another. Sometimes, two individuals who once held similar viewpoints start diverging. Tension can arise if one wishes the other to share the same convictions immediately. Yet, love and acceptance do not demand identical transformations in lockstep. Instead, they encourage the understanding that everyone is on a unique timeline, shaped by personal lessons, experiences, and revelations. A person who adopts this open-hearted stance acknowledges that growth cannot be forced, only invited. There can be an invitation to join in healthier habits or broader perspectives, but any pressure that erodes another's autonomy tends to foster resistance rather than genuine understanding. That same sense of acceptance proves crucial when facing self-doubt. Instead of berating the self for perceived shortcomings, a gentle lens of compassion can reframe even difficult situations as opportunities. For instance, an individual grappling with body image might begin by silently acknowledging the innate dignity of the human form, seeing it as a vehicle for living, learning, and connecting. Rather than bombarding the mind with harsh criticisms, the person focuses on incremental, loving actions, movement that feels good, nourishment that supports vitality, and daily affirmations of worthiness. Over time, these small steps, anchored in acceptance and positive visualization, often yield profound changes, both physically and emotionally. Everything seems to circle back to the idea that humans contain a divine spark, an essence that is inherently rooted in love. Some interpret this as being literally part of a greater energy. Others conceive it metaphorically. In either case, the abiding principle is that the core of existence runs deeper than superficial labels like ill or unattractive or unsuccessful. Those labels may reflect temporary conditions, but do not define ultimate truth. By shifting away from them as stable identities, a person can create fertile ground for transformation. Life is then less about pushing against constraints and more about flowing toward infinite potential. This does not mean that challenges disappear entirely. The human journey includes stumbling blocks, heartbreak, and unexpected turns. Yet, under this mindset, obstacles are no longer defining features, but instead serve as invitations to deepen understanding, expand empathy, or realize strength that was dormant. Observers often compare it to water running over rocks in a stream. Water does not deny the presence of those rocks, but it effortlessly finds a way around them. A similar approach can be adopted in everyday life. Friction becomes a chance to pivot, to adapt, or to find a new perspective. Gratitude has proven to be a powerful catalyst in this process. It turns attention away from what is absent or flawed and directs it toward what is already functioning, lovely, or possible. In moments of stress or sorrow, some choose to focus on the smallest blessings: a warm bed, a conversation with a close friend, the ability to breathe and reflect. Over time, this habit shifts the mental climate, making a person more receptive to creative solutions and uplifting encounters. Many who practice daily gratitude discover that it elevates their mood, fosters resilience, and even draws more positive experiences into their sphere. Mindfulness also plays a central role. This is the practice of noticing thoughts without automatically feeding them or letting them snowball into destructive loops. A quiet, stable awareness can observe the mind's fluctuations without reacting to every fleeting notion. If a negative thought arises, it can be gently acknowledged as just a mental event rather than an absolute truth. Then, by directing focus toward a more constructive or expansive perspective, the negative thought loses its momentum. Over time, such practice can retrain the mind to lean toward benevolent patterns, fostering a sense of calm and centeredness. These ideas do not remain confined to personal growth. They naturally extend to larger social spheres. When a group of people collectively shifts its thinking from competition and scarcity toward cooperation and abundance, relationships often improve and collaborative endeavors flourish. Whether in families, workplaces, or entire communities, an elevated mindset can rewrite the underlying script, forming an environment where empathy and mutual respect guide decision-making. Some highlight how tensions within communities might lessen significantly if shared compassion became the baseline rather than a lofty ideal. When the notion that everyone is fundamentally worthy takes root, efforts to uplift those in need become more urgent and wholehearted. Even the environment can benefit from a shift in thought. Many realize that old habits, such as overconsumption or reckless disregard for nature, arise from beliefs that the Earth's resources are disposable or endless. Realigning collective beliefs to see humanity as a caretaker of a living planet can spark new approaches to sustainability and conservation. This is yet another example of how changing a thought at the root level can, over time, reshape tangible aspects of daily existence. In many stories of transformation, people describe a pivotal moment when they stopped battling the present reality and embraced a sense of surrender to life as it is. This can be misunderstood as giving up, but it actually opens a door for profound acceptance. Once the constant struggle of resistance slows, clarity about the path forward can emerge. This clarity might involve a career shift, a change in personal relationships, or a renewed sense of purpose. The crucial difference is that such changes are approached with an attitude of openness rather than desperation. Bringing consciousness to each moment rather than living on autopilot is a gradual process. Old conditioned thoughts may resurface, urging one to judge harshly or panic about uncertainties. It helps to remember that those thoughts thrive on attention. If they are not fed with energy, they eventually fade, allowing a more constructive internal dialogue to take shape. Over time, choosing more uplifting and unifying thoughts becomes second nature, forging a habit that supports ongoing well-being. Some people find it useful to integrate simple rituals that reinforce these perspectives. Writing down one positive or loving thought at the start and end of each day, for example, can anchor the mind in a more receptive and gracious state. Others gather in groups to share experiences of shifting away from negative thinking, reinforcing a communal sense of empowerment. In some lines of Hindu thought, chanting or mantras offer a focusing technique that can clear mental clutter, creating space for deeper insight. Although not everyone resonates with the same methods, the underlying principle remains consistent. Direct the mind toward awareness, unity, and love, rather than fear or division. Ultimately, everything circles back to love as a foundational force. Love is not only a warm emotion felt between close companions, it is also a kind of universal glue that holds the fabric of existence together. When choices are made from a place of love, fear recedes. Obstacles that once appeared daunting can be seen in a new light. Rather than feeling compelled to fix or control every external circumstance, the individual who orients to love notices that many issues resolve themselves through cooperation, patience, and authentic care. Living from this perspective reveals that the constraints once believed to be inevitable, limitations tied to health, relationships, finances, or identity, are not absolute. They are bound up with learned beliefs that can be rearranged or even erased. By adopting a more open stance and seeing the self as inherently capable, many discover fresh horizons. What once seemed impossible begins to appear achievable. often because the internal friction that blocked progress has been replaced by an inner harmony that supports flow. The journey is ongoing. Even if someone experiences a breakthrough moment of peace or clarity, daily life will present further tests. But each challenge is also an invitation to deepen the understanding that thoughts lead the way. If the mind steers towards separation or negativity, reality will mirror that shape. If it shifts toward unity and trust, the external landscape often blossoms with parallel developments. Some interpret this dynamic through spiritual lenses, others through psychological or scientific frameworks. Regardless of the viewpoint, the consistent finding is that perspectives and beliefs wield formidable power over both subjective and objective experience. Day by day, choosing to feed only those thoughts that align with higher truths, that is, thoughts of well-being, compassion, creativity, and abundance, gradually remolds the tapestry of one's life. Opportunities may appear, relationships may strengthen, and resilience may grow, even when faced with setbacks. A mind anchored in love and possibility is less likely to falter. It knows that every ending can birth a new beginning. Every trial can inspire fresh wisdom. In the end, this practice of letting go of unwanted thoughts and embracing more uplifting ones reflects an invitation to remember the deepest aspects of existence. It aligns with what some people call the divine spark within, reminding each living being that it is not a random fragment, but a participant in something vast and interconnected. Through this lens, the mundane transforms into the meaningful, and struggles become stepping stones. There is renewed appreciation for every moment, whether joyous or challenging, because each one offers a chance to expand in love and awareness. No one is compelled to accept this perspective, yet many across different cultures and backgrounds have seen its fruit in personal changes and collective shifts. The essence of the teaching does not depend on rigid dogma. Instead, it seems to invite curiosity and experimentation. Each person, faced with the option of entertaining old limiting thoughts or nurturing new, liberating ones, can choose. And in choosing repeatedly to favor compassion, unity, and infinite potential, transformation occurs. Life becomes less a battle for survival and more a dance of continual creation, flowing into each moment with grace and possibility, shaped and guided by the power of love.